Right, good morning people. Okay, so today I am going to be working on a Darkun from the Cursed Empire game. This is the big Spikey unit you can see in the bottom corner of the screen. He's going to be a bit of a massive character. He's physically much more larger than the rest of the kind of the faction. He's supposed to be like, to me this guy's like Bane from the Batman comics, except spikier. So yeah, I haven't started him. I'm going to start him from scratch now. So he hasn't got an awful lot of clothing, as you can see. So it's mostly going to be anatomy and musculature and all that kind of stuff. So I'm going to load in a base mesh in a minute and work on the blocking in muscle groups. You can see a lot of little spikes all over this guy as well, and that's going to pose some problems. The spikes aren't going to 3D print if I do them to scale as they are in a picture, so we're going to have to come up with a creative solution to that. So it's probably going to be more, less thicker, chunkier spikes, rather than massive rows of, tiny little ones. The rest of the model, in terms of his pose, is going to go for an aggressive, not a pose in the picture, but kind of more kind of an aggressive, lunging forward, swinging a hammer kind of thing. Possibly even swinging a hammer overhead. Morning, Bunker. How you doing, mate? Hope you're keeping well. So yeah, so we're going to probably, I may go hammer overhead, swinging downwards, or just kind of like lunging forwards with the, his arms to his back kind of thing. Similar pose to this chap, I think, is what I'm thinking. So on the front foot, leaning forward, and this is me halfway through a paint job, by the way, so it's not finished yet. Morning, Bulky. How you doing? Okay, so before I go into the current sculpts that I'm working on, I just want to show you some of the ones I've already done for Cursed Empire. There's a range of 17 minis at the moment in the Cursed Empire set. It is, mate. It is cold. I've got the heating on back here, and hoodies and everything else. Got my hat to keep my head warm, plus my branding as well. But yeah, it's I've had to pop the heating on today. It's definitely getting to that time of year now. Okay, so on the screen at the moment you can see an elven druid. It's like a wood elf druid. She's one of the hero characters. All of the ones I'm going to show you now, by the way, they are hero characters from the Heroes of Thargos card game. So these are like player avatars. They're also going to be characters that will feature in the tabletop roleplay game as well. So yeah, we've got the elven druid. We have no, that was one of mine. So again, we've got this guy. He's a Condorian barbarian. Let me just turn the poly groups off so you can see him properly. Yeah, I better not go for that pose, hadn't I? Because we've already used it once, so I won't do the overhead swing. So you got this guy actually prints surprisingly well. I thought the ball and chain would be an issue, but he's one of the few models that I've printed for them that actually I've never had a failure on. He's quite robust, surprisingly. Then we've got the Cobra. Ah, they're all in here. So we've got the Cobra Sorceress. So they're all based on artwork that's been provided by Chris at Cursed Empire. We've got the Darkun. She's the first one who's been done. She's like a kind of an assassin. I don't even know how to explain the Darkuns to you, to be honest, without knowledge of without prior knowledge of the system. I think for the next time I do a stream here, I'll probably see if I can get Chris on, and he can kind of talk you through and kind of explain what's going on with them. But yeah, she's a cool model. I know Chris has just had her printed at 120mm. 120mm, I think it was. So she's a big sculpt on his one. It looks amazing. We've got a little dwarf. He's like the equivalent of a Duergar from D&D. Hi Chris, how you doing, mate? Good to see you on, mate. So yeah, this guy's like a little evil dwarf, little chaos dwarf kind of thing, beardless and bald headed. Then we got the wild elf. He's one of my favourites. The Imperial Knight, the Crimson Guard, or Crimson Knight, sorry. Again, another nice, cool one that he had printed in a massive scale. And then we got the Barbarian again. Okay, so I don't know if I've got a base mesh loaded into the. I don't have one. Right, I'm just going to go and bring one of mine in. So for this one, I'm going to pick up it's from Male X. So you can see it's very crude and very simple base mesh. It's just a starting point. There's no anatomy on it. But proportion wise I quite like it. So the first thing I'm just going to do, I'm just going to rough in some of the muscle groups, get my symmetry turned on, and why is my brush not showing up properly? There is something not going. Oh god, what's going on? Oh god, is this got tiny or something? Right, I'm just going to have to turn Zbrush off and try and reload it again in a second. It is not playing games this morning. I don't know if my computer hasn't warmed up or if it's just giving me a headache because it wants to. Or just because it's Zbrush. Anybody who's used it before will know the pain. Right. I'm going to start a clean file from a fresh project for this one. Let's get that base mesh back in. Okay, so starting from scratch, draw it out, press T to send it into edit mode. Oh, you had IT issues as well, Chris. The world has just stopped working. Right, here we go. So basic material again. I'm going to auto group him. I'm going to keep the hands away because I don't actually want the hands. Group the arms, group the body, keep the head separate. Pause. Okay. I'm just going to split the head off from the rest of the mesh, the body mesh. And I'm going to run a Dynamesh with polishing groups on. Okay, so now I should be able to sculpt in some anatomy. You agree, Milky? Your IT issues as well, or you're having IT issues as well. Okay, so this is just the start of some muscle roughing out. I'm working from memory at the moment, so I may come back in and use some actual reference to just refine it later, but for now I feel like I'm okay. So there's nothing too clean and crisp going on. It's going to be quite rough at the moment, and I'll come back and I'll polish it up once I've got all the shapes and forms I want. we're doing a stylised anatomy for this guy to make sure he's a little bit overly exaggerated, because we want him to look like a massive unit of a character. And you know, with miniatures it's all about the exaggerations, so we don't want to go too true to life scale, because if it's too close to real life, then the details are not going to show up on the model, so we have to kind of just make a little bit of an allowance, a little bit of an exception there. So you can see, even though I started with a simple crude base that looked quite cartoony, that's not going to stay for very long. Okay. I quite like to try and keep some of these. Oh right, yeah, yeah. Anybody that's used Zbrush has had that that crash going on. I was sculpting on it the other night, and I think certain files just seem to just get corrupted or something like that, and they just crash repeatedly no matter what you do. And I was just trying to do something simple. I think I was just trying to dynamesh something so I could just sculpt on it, and repeatedly it just kept dying on me on the same point. I ended up redoing the same bit of work about a dozen times before I actually managed to succeed and get it to work, and it's never fun then. Okay, so back muscle is going to be important for this guy as well, because they're going to be on display. His back's a little bit too exaggerated, so I'm probably going to kind of tone that down a touch. Chris, fire away, mate. You type, I'll read so that the world can hear. So if you want to explain the specific guy that I'm doing at the moment, but so yeah, you can see all I'm doing at the moment, I'm just roughing in the shapes using the clay build-up tool. There's nothing too kind of clean and precise happening. It's just a nice quick process. Once I've got these basic shapes in, what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back in and I'm going to just carve into them. So we use the All Cracks brush, small size. Just create some, like, I think I've used the phrase before, but it's somewhere for your ink to run. Okay, yeah. So in Cursed Empire, you've got the Imperial Legion, which is the ones who've got the Greek aesthetic to them. And the Darkuns, the guy I'm sculpting now, he's one of the Darkuns. These are like the rebels, if you like. So they're the anti-Empire. Yeah. So if you're in the Twitch chat or the multi-stream chat, you'll see Crystal Arzu 300. I'm pretty sure 300 is a reference to the Spartans, because the man is all about the Greeks. But yeah, he's the man who is behind all of this. So, so yeah, so mate, the game's been in existence as an RPG for 22 years, I believe. Chris, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think 22 years worth of RPG. Going into 3rd edition very shortly. 30 years, sorry. Apologies, Chris. So it's going into 3rd edition now. I've got all the 2nd edition books on my shelf. It used to be called Crimson Empire back when I back at 2nd edition. But I believe there was a bit of an issue with Mr. Lucas over that, because it's a bit of a, I think it's trademarked under Star Wars or something along those lines. So sadly, Crimson Empire couldn't stay, but we're here with Cursed Empire now. Going into 3rd edition. Yes, mate, I remember. Going into 3rd edition now, with the tabletop RPG as well. So if you're ever looking for an alternative to D&D that's a little bit more dark and gritty and murderous and you know, let's use a Games Workshop term, grimdark. If you want that kind of atmosphere and environment in a tabletop game or an RPG, absolutely, definitely go and check them out. So Chris has also licensed my existing miniature range to include them into his game. So what you'll find is, if you go through my past releases, you'll find Chris is writing rules for them into his dungeon crawlers. So yeah, there's a lot of history behind the game. He's done a lot of world building. There's a whole load of resources out there. Chris, how many source books have you got now? 10 books. There you go, 10 books to get your teeth stuck into. Fantastic artwork in there as well. The man has not skimped on production value. I'll say it's tried and tested. Reception's been fantastic at Essen and UK Games Expo and the various other places it's been tabled. And the whole thing will be starting to ramp up soon, because Chris has been doing it as a part-time thing for quite a long time now. But over the last year, he's now gone full-time on it. There you go, full reboot coming in the 3rd edition. So hopefully we'll start seeing a little bit more. I want full colour as well. You sexy beast, Chris. There we go, a bit of back muscle going on. Some torso sculptage. Let's get some ribs and whatever these muscles up here are called. You see, I know the anatomy. I don't know the names of it all, so I'm not going to try and baffle you all with technical terminology, because I don't know it. I'm not even going to pretend I do. So for these bits here, we're going to do the ribs and then just come back and carve down into an angle. And there we go. Wilkie, it's a great game as well. Chris, if you want to pop a link in, absolutely feel free. There's a couple of Kickstarters coming up as well, I believe. There's the War Galleys of Thargos, which is kind of, if you've ever played, I know I've said this before, but if you've ever played Assassin's Creed Odyssey, where you're in the galleys and you're on the seas having naval warfare, it's basically that as a card game. And then the Heroes of Thargos, it's all about player versus player. Encounters, very story driven kind of RPG card game, I think is a decent way of describing it, Chris, unless you have a preferred blurb. So yeah, so talking about this specific Darkun then, so they come in different factions. They're all supposed to be about allied against the Empire, but there is infighting between them. So if you're talking tabletop games, if you think in terms of like Necromunda or Mordheim or something along those kind of lines, there's plenty of scope here for Chris, I think, to do the old like faction versus faction like warfare, which personally, Chris, I'd love to see that. So let's get that one done with your tabletop game. Okay. Torso's pretty much there at the moment, I think, so I'm going to stop here a sec. So yeah, so the infight, the pures are despised by all. Is this guy a pure, is he, Chris? The... Just going to bring the chest out here a bit at the front. I don't want to make him look too lean. I want this guy to be chunky. Okay, so this guy is a fire cult subfaction. Ignore the P head on this one, by the way. It's not staying. Okay, so just onto the arms now. So he's going to put the shoulders in roughly. They have metal spikes burnt onto their face. Nice. Yeah, they can never go undercover with that kind of look. So this guy, the spikes that are on this guy's mask, are they kind of like actually on his head then? Are they poking through a mask, or? I just assumed it was some kind of like gimp mask he was wearing. Just gonna reprofile the arms a touch. Burnt skin around the edge. Oh, around the spikes. Ah, right. So do you want like straps around the back of this rather than like as a? Because I was going to do this as like a full hood kind of thing, like a gimp mask kind of thing. But would you prefer a like a face mask with like straps around the back or something? I'm just going to use H polish because I'm just trying to get my shape right on these shoulders. I'm going to use it to just shape it and just polish it around until I get to the approximate look I'm looking for. Okay, coming to the bicep now. So the bicep's going to start from the corner there. In fact, you know what? Let me just put the torso back on. I tell you, Chris, this guy's going to be a joy to paint with all these muscles and flesh going on. Two-part mask front and back, got you, mate. Pop an elbow in. Okay, so the minor Darkuns only have a small mask. So are we talking like the mask is a status symbol for them, is it as well? The less of your face that is visible, the more powerful they are, or? Sorry, Chris. I was just saying that the more powerful they are, the less of the face you're going to see. Is that like a status symbol with the masks for these guys? Yes. Yeah. So when we do the Darkun minions, then they're going to be maskless, are they? The like the low level, and higher grade metals as well. What's, we're going to have some gold mass Darkuns, are we, or are we talking like titanium kind of, you know, just higher grade as in tougher and harder, or underpants level? I think you should call them that in the book as well. So hopefully you guys can all see what I'm doing here in terms of like I'm taking these like sausage like bases that are on the base mesh, and I'm putting muscle in them. Now I haven't joined the arms to the torso yet, so I've sculpted them in situ, they're in the right place, but there's proportional work to be done. So the arms at the moment are absolutely massive. And as cool as that looks, Chris, I don't know if you'll agree with me here, I'm going to tone them down. If you want me to keep the arms big, you just tell me now and I'll keep them like that. But I feel like they need to be trimmed up for proportion a little bit, just to make them less caricature and more yeah, so I know we're doing like I say, a Bane type character, but I want him to look big, but not like a joke kind of thing. I don't want him to walk out. I don't want to look like, you know, you see some of these miniatures where they over exaggerated it and got it wrong. I don't want to be there. I'm just nudging it with the move tool now, just to get the shapes right. Just going to run smoothing over it, just very, very lightly, and then I'll come back in with the the orb cracks again, just to get it done. Wilkie, just back to your question earlier on. Any advice on getting a game going? Been trying to kickstart. I've been wanting to try to kickstart a game for a while. Still have development to do before I'm at that stage. Yeah, just keep going with it, mate. It is the thing. I mean, I developed a full kind of tabletop roleplay game, and I just did it on the evenings, writing story. I had an idea in my head of what I wanted to do with it, and I've pushed it as far as the point where I think it basically just needs playtesting. I just didn't really know what to do with that, but then working with Max on Crystal Collapse, we've been using Tabletop Simulator, and Max has basically built the Crystal Collapse game in Tabletop Simulator for us to kind of play. Obviously there's no like rules or anything with that, so there's no kind of like it literally is like simulating a tabletop if you've never done it before. So you physically have to like move pieces around yourself. You physically have to roll dice in there, but you can put all of these assets in. You can load assets that are kind of like generic ones, and you can like customize things and put, you know, your own meshes and images and stuff in there. So I would say if you can get it to a point where you've got the mechanics and you want to start figuring it out, that's probably the sharpest or smartest way of doing it. And then I've got a playtesting group on my Discord, which I'm inviting people to come and join for doing Crystal Collapse and stuff. And if you want to make use of that playtesting group and get those guys to try your game as well and invite them to it, I'm absolutely happy for you to come and do that. You know, make use of the playtesters I'm gathering, and get them to give you some feedback on the game, and, you know, help chip in. So you know, if it helps, I'm absolutely happy to assist, mate. No worries, Chris. I hope he's not throwing a 3D printer over your fence again. Chris had a Sonic Mini 4K delivered the other week, just before Essen, and he's a bit of a posh bugger, is Chris, and he's got a big long driveway with a massive, great big 2 metre high gate at the end of it to keep all the unwanted riffraff out. And it appears that includes the postman, who decided to throw his 3D printer and 5 litres of resin over a 2 metre fence. So, don't know if he's tried it yet, but I'm really hoping it's functional after the descent. Yeah, he hasn't complained to me that it's not working, but I don't know if he's actually tried it yet. So we think the postmen in the UK are bad, but this is French couriers, so. Okay, I'm fairly happy with the arms now. Right, now, I don't know if you can see in the image here, this guy has basically been drawn for like a montage where there's 4 characters in a kind of a, you know, like the old Queen Bohemian Rhapsody kind of picture. Imagine that with like 4 of these Darkun characters in, and he is in the centre at the back. So, as you can see, dude's got no legs. So, I have no reference images to go for by the legs. I'm probably going to put him in some kind of like leather trousers, maybe with some like laces and maybe a few straps and things like that to try and make him, you know, straps, spikes, leather. Sounds a bit kinky, doesn't it? But that's the kind of aesthetic these guys have got across the board. So. Yeah, we're going to go for probably some spiky metal boots or something along those lines. Dude, I'm not sculpting smoke legs. I did like a smoke. I don't know what you call it, a smoke stand, if you like, for a flame skull I did a while back, and that was hard enough to try and make it convincing. So I don't relish the idea of sculpting smoke if we can avoid it. I'll tell you as well, these little things here, absolutely fantastic in both hot weather and cold weather. Because for some reason, in hot weather your hand, well I say for some reason, I know exactly what the reason is. In hot weather, your hand sticks to the screen with like the sweat, and it makes it hard to kind of get like smooth movements and stuff going on. And in the cold weather like now, the screen's so cold when you get on there, it's like painful to work on. But irrespective of the temperature, it just helps to kind of like get your strokes nice and smooth on the tablet. So if you're doing any kind of like digital artwork, whether it's sculpting or drawing, grab yourself a couple of these and keep them handy. Morning, Mr. Snowyak. Ski sleeves, yeah. Anything that helps your hands glide, to be honest. These ones are just good because obviously they only do the bottom 2 fingers, and then they keep your index finger and middle finger and thumb grippable or grippy. Right, so legs. Let's start with knees. In fact, let me just start with proportions here, because these like joke legs. So just going to isolate the arms, and I'm going to make his legs a little bit bigger. Chris, I was just telling everyone else about your ordeal with your 3D printer being held over your fence. I was just wondering if you tested it and knew if it was working. Wide-legged Hakama style pants. Chris, what do you think to that? You've not tested it? Oh mate, you want to get on that before the warranty, or your 30-day warranty or whatever kind of like kicks in. What do you reckon to Wilkie's idea about the Hakama style pants? Are they like the samurai trousers, the big baggy type jobbies, are they, or am I thinking of something else? What do you reckon, Chris? I kind of think that could quite work quite well with these guys, actually. A bit like the elf. I've done the drow elf, the Zeknathane. Zaknathane. Or my version of Zaknathane, at least. I'm not going to do too much of the anatomy from here down, because I know he's going to have big metal boots on. Or at least metal greaves. Chris, you're losing me, mate. I don't know what you're on about. Do you want the baggier trousers, or do you want the close fit? So yeah, this is my anatomy from memory anyway, so this is... He needs a bum. Chris, I don't know if I can sculpt flame retardant on a miniature, mate. So we've got Nomex. Oh, I need to have a look at you know these what are they called? You know, like the angle grinder guys who do they have the dancers who have the angle grinders and the big metal belts to make all the sparks and stuff like that. That's what you need, something like that. Let's just pop some hips on him. Yeah, I'm not sure mesh is going to happen, to be honest, mate. Because we're dealing with the miniature, it's going to be 32mm scale. If we're doing like a large diorama type piece, it might work alright, but... What do we think here then? A huge muscled unit of a dude. Okay, so we're going to drop a head in now, so let's come back to the head I've isolated. Let's just re-proportion that touch. Disregard this little mouth in the middle of his, looks like a cyclops, doesn't it? Disregard the little mouth. Yeah, so Chris was saying obviously there's a lot of tattoos on these guys, but rather than leave it down to you to paint them all, they're also going to be advocates of scarification. So we're going to sculpt some of the tattoos on, so you've got that that little base to work from. You can get some of these little pinks going on to kind of make them look a little bit more brutal and vicious. Oh, we're using the wrong tool, that's why it's not working. Give me a second. Okay, so we've got some quite raised cheekbones on this guy. Center part of the mask. The other thing you won't know yet, or you won't realise here, I actually sculpted this exact model. What was it, 10 years ago, Chris? Something like that? More than that, was it? So I did the original set of models 15 years ago. I did the original set of models for Chris's roleplay game, and that was done in green stuff. This was years before I even picked up Zbrush. This was. So they're like a metal miniature range and whatnot. This is one of the few guys. In fact, he's the only one I think that I recall seeing from the original set of characters. They were cool, Chris, but these ones are going to be cooler. So the original ones were metal, so you have to make a lot of considerations for making metal models because you can't have any undercuts on the figures. So you can have some, sorry, but you can't. You can't be excessive with them. And then the obvious issue you have with that is you're limited in like poses and things. Chris, quick question for you on the ears, mate. Do you want ears to be... Do you want ear holes on the mask, or are we just going to kind of cover them over and just... Bear with me a second, I'm just doing anatomy off the top of my head now. I need to get the reference image up, so I'm just going to pull up the images on my screen. Holes, okay mate, no worries. Oh, not visible, so I don't need to worry about actually putting them on the model. Okay, right. So I'm just gonna bring this in and zoom it on for a full screen. So I know you've got him in the corner, but let's go big for you so you can appreciate the artwork properly. Okay, so this is what I'm working with. So looking at the mask, bear with me a a second. So looking at the mask here, it looks, we've got a kind of a ridged kind of plate coming around for the face, so we'll say this is the front part of the mask, this will be the dividing line here, and then we'll have the back of the mask around there, obviously the horsehair crest, and the little shoulder adornment. Chris, who was it who did this piece? Was this Ryan, or was this one of Martin's pieces? Or Ryan? Have you got Ryan's Instagram to pop into the chat here? Because I'd like to share that. I haven't got it on hand now. Could you dig that up and chuck it into the chat for everyone to check him out? Because Ryan's he's a fantastic artist. Chris is working with quite a few very talented individuals, and I met Ryan when we did UK Games Expo. So he came down. He's a lovely chap, and very, very talented, as you can see. Okay, so I was going to pop this up on the top screen now. I'm going to try and sort out this, get this face over onto the get this face onto this model. Okay, so I've come up a bit too high so far. Let's put the eyes in first, because that's a marker for me. There we go, guys. If you're on Instagram, have a look at that link that Chris has just popped into the chat. So it's instagram.com/Ryan Verhagen, or Verhagen, Verhagan. Okay, so check him out, have a little look at his stuff. Again, Chris has also shared the Cursed Empire Facebook group or page, I'm not sure, but either way, check that one out as well, and you'll be able to see more of this kind of stuff going on. See some of the rules, some of the updates from the trade shows they've done recently. I'm saying it all seems to be going rather swimmingly at the moment, so it's gaining traction. Chris is putting in an awful lot of effort into making sure it's known. It's known about. It's gaining a little bit of notoriety. The groups are growing. The fan base is building. No worries, mate. Yeah, so if you'd like to become part of that community and start part of the this group, I believe Chris is going to be looking for some. Oh, hi Xavier, how you doing, mate? I tried to tune into your stream the other day, by the way, and there was like no sound on it at all. So I could see your mouth moving, I could see you kind of like talking quite a lot, but there was just no sound like coming through. And I know when I did my first stream, I did about 10 minutes of streaming before I realised I didn't have a microphone turned on. So I'm hoping it was down to a technical error and it wasn't just, hoping it was not just my end, to be honest, but I just wanted to give you the heads up on that. Okay, so where are we at now? So I want to bring this down here. Okay, Xavier, so this is the guy in the bottom right hand corner. I'm just making him, so I've done the muscle mass out this morning, so the blocking out for the anatomy is done. So now I'm just going back through, just doing the face, and then I'm going to work through the various other bits of clothing and stuff. So, right, where are we looking? So the head, top of the head, it will be here, I suppose. Let's bring that round. Get that little shape in there. So we're going to create the layer on the ridge line on the top of the mask. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll get that on there. I'm just going to smooth out some of the transition here into that, and then go back through with my polish tools, just polish them out. So any time I do anything hard surface, this is pretty much my method for it. Quite good progress on this. I haven't been going for quite an hour yet, and the anatomy's in already, and we're on the detailing. So I'm pretty pleased with that. There we go. Isolate the mask so I can just sharpen up this bottom edge. So what I'll do is I'll get the rough forms in. I'll be shaping the edges, getting everything roughly where I think it needs to be, and then once everything's in its approximate positions, I'll do a little bit of final nudging, and we'll try and get the let's stop there for the top plate, I think. Chris, I know we said 2 parts to the helmet, but if it's alright with you, I'm going to make this a 3-parter, so I'm going to put a seam down the back there, just to the very back of the head. Kind of thinking like a wraparound kind of thing, so it'd go on the back, clamp round, and then the top part would go over. You have to think about these things. How's it going on? What's the process? Because there's a whole thing with fantasy where I don't know if you've seen the phrase, was it suspended disbelief? So it's all right having fantasy and having all these weird and wacky kind of creatures and things like that, but there's got to be a rooting in reality and practicality to a point to make things believable. And if you omit that, then you can just go into the realms of silly. And that's fine sometimes, but it depends what you're trying to achieve. Okay, so I'm just using my polish tool, edge polish. So we'll use the move tool to just bring the back of the mask out a bit more. And I'm just going to nudge this bit at the top in. Okay. What I didn't realise is while I've been doing all this polishing, I've left my what do we call it? Dynamic tessellation, Sculptress Pro mode. I've left that turned on, so I've got all this weird tessellation going on the edges here now, where you can see all these like little facets coming up. And I hadn't intended them for them to be there, so I'm just going to auto group the whole thing, dynamesh it with better resolution than that. There we go, polish turned on, so that'll help sharpen it up. I need to change the colour because I'm colourblind, I can't see anything there. Blue, It's fine. In fact, I can just turn it off, can't I? That'll do. Yeah, Zbrush comes with all these different colours and materials, and the standard one is this red wax. And I'm colourblind, so I really struggle with red. I can't make out any of the shapes and forms and stuff, so it's one of the things. The first things I always do is just to go and nerf that and get rid of it. Okay, so I've done something wrong on this part of the face mask at the front, so it's going to come and do some corrections here. We're going to have that looks better to me. Thank you, Chris. It's practice, mate. It's I can see the colour. I can't see gradients within the colour. So I really struggle when it comes to doing. I mean, I do paint red. I do paint a lot of red because I kind of have to, and I use it a lot for tones and things. But in fact, Cursed Empire is a nightmare for me because it's the black and red combination is one of the worst things for me. And pretty much everything for Cursed Empire is black and red. So I just got to get on and live with it, I think, at this point. But weirdly, it seems to be getting better. The colour blindness is improving, like over the years. There was a point when I couldn't see anything red, so like a red laser pen, red light. You know, if you got a torch, a red light torch, shine that around, I couldn't see it. When I was a kid, my mum bought me it was an alarm clock. She bought me an alarm clock from my bedroom. Oh, you turd. Chatting away and Zbrush crashes. Please tell me we've got some saved. How far back is that? So there we go, one of these famous Zbrush crashes. Straight to desktop. I'm hoping Maxon are going to come in and kick arse on this one, because that is not on. It's one of the things that is, no matter what you do, it doesn't seem to affect. Cheers, guys. Do you know what? I'm so used to it now, though. It's not even funny. I should save more often. In fact, you know what? I need to save this because I haven't actually saved the file at all. I've just got like one autosave. What we calling this guy, Chris? Something Darkun? Fire Darkun or? Do you know, I'm just going to call it Darkuns because I'll do the rest of them in the same folder. Darkun, CE Darkuns, there we go. So that's sculpts, not base meshes. Pure Darkun, there we go, mate. Okay, right, so we saved at least now, so I'm not going to lose any of this anatomy that I've spent an hour working on. And sculpting for an hour without saving is a major rookie mistake, so don't do what I did. So I was going to reform the mask area now. So I'm going to do something different here. Right? So I'm going to duplicate the head because we've got these layers going on. I'm going to use the one for the top part of the mask and one for the rest of it. So I'll do the top part on this here, and I can sharpen up the edges better then. Let's just do a point there, bring it up here to another point. So I'm just going to gouge into this now. I do this sometimes when I'm doing like layered models. So rather than faffing around trying to do extractions and stuff, I just duplicate the base tool, and it doesn't have to be pretty because it's going to be hidden and not visible. I just need to be able to get enough of it to dug out so that I can sharpen that inside edge. So we come down to here, let's put that there, and then we're going to take the front out as well. I'm going to put my dynamic tessellation on for this so it doesn't create horrible artifacts, and if it does I can just put smoothing on and just smooth them out. Like these little floaty bits which suck. Okay. And you'll see when I did that, when Zbrush crashed a minute ago, I wasn't doing anything special. So it wasn't like I was doing anything that was particularly taxing on the computer. It was just Zbrush had a brain fart and just died, because that's what it does. It's the one thing I would love to see fixed. I'm not even bothered about any other features of Zbrush. I don't. It doesn't need any new features. It doesn't need anything improving in there in terms of what it's got. The one thing it absolutely does need is a bit more stability. I know my machine can handle it, so it's definitely not down to the technical spec of what I'm running it on. Right, so let's come in here and just polish the inside edges so we can get a nice sharp ridge line. And then I'll Dynamesh with polishing enabled. And like when you're doing inside corners like this, you need to use the Alt key with the polishing, because if you try and polish without the Alt key, it's going to carve a hard edge, like a hard corner. You can't get the smooth bend, so you use the Alt key and you can actually get around the corners without it creasing. Okay, so there we are nearly. Let's just buff this one out using the Alt key again. I want that raised up. I'm just going to Dynamesh this now, sharpen it up. I've turned off dynamic tessellation so it doesn't start giving me that funniness again. I want these edges crisp, just like they are right at the moment. And then this centre section, which I've left untouched, just need to take chunks out of that a bit. And then I've got to figure out putting some spikes on here. Okay. Right, this little, and that looks like the stringy cheese on a bit of pizza or something like that. The only way you can get rid of that is either mask it or use dynamic tessellation. Dynamic tessellation has just torn a hole in the model. So let's just close that up. I'm just going to quickly do a quick save. You read my mind, Chris. So it used to be with sculpting in green stuff, you get so far and then you're kind of thinking, oh, I need to save my progress because I'm happy with everything I've sculpted. And I know if I go any further I'm going to put my thumb in it. So you just like have to park the model. You have to use a little bit of discipline and say, right, enough's enough, I'll just wait for it to cure, leave it for an hour, come back and carry on, work on something else in the meantime. And with Zbrush it's kind of the same kind of thing. You have to, once you get something you've done that you're happy with, you need to go and go, right, mental note to save, you know, mental prompt, save it now or you're going to lose it. Okay, let's just bring this up so you can see the grey below is the bottom layer of the helmet, and I need quite a distinct ridge between the two of these or you're not going to see it on the final model. So let's ridge this out here. Bottom bit up. So I've just got to be careful about like the line I've just created here. I want sharp lines without dynamic tessellation on. So I'm just going to polish some of this up, make sure I get a nice crisp edge. Cheers, Chris, I'm glad you're enjoying it. It's a hammer this guy's holding as well, isn't it? Thinking about it now, so he needs a he's gonna need a nice big two-handed hammer. Enjoy sculpting that. The bottom layer now. So I'm going to carve this bit away. Just carving for the eyes. So I'll put the eyes into this layer as well, I think. The back I'm going to leave, with the exception of what I said earlier about the division line. I'm going to bump up my Z intensity and just do a vertical line running down from there. Just going to extend it a little bit up just to make sure. Okie doke. So the face bit at the front, let's smooth this out. I might do an extract on this actually for this front part. So if I take it back a touch, take that ridge line out of it because it doesn't need it. Take it all back a touch. Okay, so if I do let's mask off this area straight down and round. I'm not going to worry about like the vents in the bottom at the moment. Let's come down to here. Okay, I'm going to extract that. It's too big. Let's bump this down to 458, try. Yep, 458 is fine. Right, I'm going to isolate the inside, invert the mask so the inside is the active part. Center on the object, remove my yeah, screen grab and post, mate. You go, crack on with it, dude. I'm just gonna shrink the interior of this and then pull it back. And what this is doing, this is going to create something that is going to kind of properly dig into the base mesh. I've said a few times before in previous streams, one of the things I need to try and avoid here is any kind of like little pockets between surfaces. So if you try and sculpt clothes onto a model, the best way I found to do it is like I did with the helmet layers. So I'll duplicate the the body, and then I'll sculpt the clothes straight on top of the body, inflate it up if I need to, cut off bits I don't need, carve it back and polish the edges and everything else. So I do it all using the actual body as a former, and the whole thing will be solid. So the neck will be a solid cap. There won't be a hole in there that goes inside. Same for the arms. At the wrists there won't be any kind of like, you know, open sleeves or anything like that, because if you can get your finger in there, you can get resin in there. So those little areas like that, that'd have to be just a solid, what do you call it? Just like a solid cap on the end of a sleeve. And the problem is like if you move the outer skin and there's an opening at one end anywhere, you're going to create this kind of like internal geometry on the model, which is going to be a little resin pit, and you need to avoid that at all costs, because that's going to come back and bite you later. And it's also areas that you're going to need to support when you're making the model, or potentially going to need to support. And if you ever do create that by accident, at the point when you come to do the supports on the model, you're going to see it. And this is why I'd always encourage sculptors to print and paint their own work, because if you don't print and paint it, you're never going to be able to appreciate the end product as the customers are going to see it, and they're going to find the mistakes before you, which is never a good thing. From a quality control point of view and understanding the product, you need to do this this process. And I know there's a lot of people out there who do pre-supports and they do a cracking job on it. You know, Ty Mansfield, Table Flip Foundry will be the one I'm going to champion on this one, because it's fantastic. Does a cracking job. Very diligent, very thorough and very professional. But if you don't understand it yourself, then it's a part of the sculpting process that you're not going to account for. So you need to be able to account for supports when you're sculpting, because one of the worst things you can ever do is like that face on this guy, for example. There are people out there who would get this this artwork and they would sculpt every single spike on that face. Now I know that's going to be a problem. I know it's going to come back and bite me later, so I'm not going to even try to do it. But there are people who don't understand that, because they don't 3D print stuff. They sculpt but they don't print. And then obviously they're not painting it, so they don't appreciate then that they're also going to be, not only they're going to be a pain to paint a sculpt, they're going to be near on impossible to paint and get looking right. So there's this element of stylization you have to do to turn artwork into a miniature, and I'd love to see more of that interpretation in the industry, but sadly I think it's a way off yet. You know, you guys need to as customers, you need to be insisting that your sculptors are, or the sculptors that you're supporting and championing are actually, you know, actually partaking in the hobby. And then they'll have a fuller understanding of the issues you're going to face when you're trying to deal with the model. And so for me, I've been painting miniatures for nearly 39 in a couple of weeks' time. I've been painting models since I was like 5, so you know, it's a long time painting miniatures and playing war games and Hero Quest and things like that. And I've got a very good appreciation of the hobby as a result. And then I've been sculpting miniatures from green stuff. As Chris was saying, 15 years ago I was doing commissions for Chris. I've been sculpting miniatures for probably 20 years, all in all. I was going to bump the resolution on this up. I'm just going to divide it once. I'll try and get a smoother mask on this so I can invert the grid bits. Right, so let's do a shrinking job on these as well. Just like we did on the back part. It's going to shrink the mesh, but I'm going to extend it out a touch just and grow it up as well. Are they deep enough? No. Okay, let's take it in a bit. Okay, now I'm going to bump the resolution up, polish it, and dynamesh again. Okay, that should do. Back to the underlayer. I need to take... Oops. That's going down. That's going down, and all down here is as well. So let's just right, there we go. Create it unmasked. The edge of this now, I'm just going, oh god, wrong way. I'm just going to build that up, and then right, I'm actually going to leave that last little bit off because it's mucking up the mouth area. Oh god, what's happened here? The ears. Okay, so back of the helmet is like that. Right, I need to, because it's a helmet, I need to just put a ridge line around the bottom. There we go. Just buff out some of the edging of that. That was orb cracks inverted just to give it a decent sized ridge. Large-ish size, sorry, on the H polish brush. I'm just inverting this now just to kind of bring up the edge. I'm just going to go over the whole edge then broadly with the H polish tool not inverted, just to help smooth out the lumps and bumps. Burns on the neck, yeah, I can try and do some of that for you. I'm not sure how well that's going to come through on the end model, but what I'll do is I'll do that once it's posed, Chris. Let's take this mask here. I think the top just needs to, the brow line needs to come down a touch. Go. Right, let's get some spikes on this dude. Actually, no, let's get his eyeballs in first. This man has got some little menacing eyeballs going on. So once the eyeballs are in place, you can do the eye sockets. It's never a good idea to try and do eyes without having eyeballs in there, because you end up sculpting something that's just too flat and wrong. So put the eyes in first. Put your little orbs in for your eyeballs, and then sculpt your eyelids around them. So carve in an eye socket first, pop an eyeball in there, and then do all your eyelids and stuff around it. Okay. Suitably menacing, I feel. Right, I was going to come and carve some of these little details into his helmet now. Right, now the original version of this guy, I had to really rein it in because the hiya Brian. Mate, I have to say, I saw your I tried to comment on it and then I lost the post and I couldn't sign in on YouTube, but your yes Chris, you're right, save point, save. I saw your Facebook video that you posted earlier on, and it is fantastic, mate. And the little Lord of the Rings reference was not lost on me either. Hope you keep him. Are you still travelling the world? Or are you back home now? Brian, who's just popped up on the Facebook chat, by the way. I used to work with him going back a few years now, when I was doing facilities management. And he's a lovely bloke into his D&D and his hobbies and stuff, his miniatures. But he also, if you're into any like wilderness type adventure type what's-its, he actually balls. He makes some fantastic outdoorsy equipment. Brian, I don't know if you're still listening, mate. If you can, if you want to pop your link into the post. Yeah, that's Home Is Behind is one of my kids' favourite bedtime songs. Oh god. But yeah, if you want to pop the link to your website in the chat, mate. Happy for you to drop it in. Lost my tool. What am I doing? There he is. Okay, so we're just going to pop the top crest up. I'm going to scale it down, so I'm going to flatten it out a bit. Oh no, I've done something wrong now. I've forgotten to mask something I can't even see. Right, what I'm going to do here, actually, I've changed my mind. I'm going to do that. So we're going to I'm not going to raise everything. There you go, Journeyman Handicraft. Handcraft, sorry, not handicraft. So yeah, check him out on online. Have a little look, and if you're into any like wilderness rambling, or anything else, or you need an awesome backpack. Yeah, he hasn't actually posted the link. He's just posted the name of the thing. Brian, have you got the thing, and we'll get it copied over onto the Twitch stream. Right, it is being a nuisance for me Twitches today, and I can't remember my Twitch password to log in, so I actually can't chat at the moment. Annoyingly. Right, let's bring this crest up. I'm just going to rotate it going to rotate it as well, so I'm going to bring it up and rotate it round. Dynamish. And it's going to use a move tool to just do a bit of reprofiling. Okay, journeymanhandcraft.com. Chris, can you any chance you can pop that in there for me? Or Wilkie? www.journeymanhandcraft.com. Army cases? What, like the pelican cases thing, or you're talking like? Cause if you're making peli cases, I'll have some of them off you. Thank you, Wilkie. Appreciate that. Yeah, I might have to tap you up some tips on making videos there, Brian, because that was just epic, that video. Oh, cool. Yeah, when I saw your video this morning, I thought I need to take my nipper camping. Okay, so put the grill lines in here. Put one straight down the middle. Eight months, mate. God. That's why mine looked naff after I've tried to spend about an hour on it. The last video I made, it was a little turntable of Griblet, the little what's his name? Imp. Little imp called Griblet. And I just find it on here actually. I made this Dio's here as well. Hey Dio, how you doing, mate? Good to have you on board. Yeah, I made this video. Yep. Yeah, the Greeks love the big crests, and this guy's already big anyway, and then he has a massive crest on his head, which just makes him that much bigger again. Perhaps. Yeah, I tried to make a video for TikTok. It was. I was chatting to AJ at Game T. And she was saying that they'd had some quite good success with their TikTok videos. No worries, Wilkie. Thanks for tuning in, mate. You have a good day. Yeah, AJ at Game T, she kind of gave me a heads up about TikTok. Said it had been quite successful for them for promoting some of their products. And if you're liking your dice and you like your Halloween type things, I don't know if they've got them if they've got them back in stock or not. But they basically sold out like pretty much immediately as soon as this TikTok video went online. And they're these funky little green transparent poly dice. They have like a little rotating floaty eyeball in the middle of them. So as you roll it, the eyeball always comes back up to look at you. They're proper creepy, but they are good looking little dice. Let's just soften this line here a bit. Right, and save before I crash and die. just going to go up to my my brush menu. I've got all my plethora of custom brushes. And I've got a nice little one which I picked up from Bad King. It's called MV Spikes. And yeah, it's just, I don't know if you can see across the top, it's just a selection of different types of spikes. For this guy I just want a simple basic one really, so I'll go for this one. It's called Spike Bolt 5, and you'll see it looks like that when I put it on. The only problem is there's a small bevel underneath which reduces the contact point to the surface area. I don't want that. So I'm just going to go into my brush menu. I'm going to scroll down to depth. I'm just going to bring this down here so the spikes are basically going to be full on embedded into the helmet, so you're not going to see any of this bottom bit. We're going to put a few good spikes on here. We're going to tone it down from what's on the image, as we said. Yeah, Brian, once I've finished, mate, I'll do a print of this, but I've got to do supports and everything else first. So, oh god, that's a bit too big. So I'll run like a line of them right here, I think. Maybe a little one there. And then we'll do a little one here, I think. Little one here. Do I try and put them on the nose? Oops. A couple of small ones there. I think we'll go across the cheek line. And right, I'm going to omit the ones around the chin there, Chris. Only because if he looks down he's going to impale himself, and also they're going to be absolute pigs to try and get supports into. So if you're happy with that, I'm just going to leave them off the bottom of the chin. So I'm going to come down here now, put a couple on the sides of his cheeks, and I'm just going to put one or two in this little gap here just to fill that extra space. Right, now I don't know if you can notice what's just happened there. The spikes go in on a complete tangent to the surface that you apply them to, and because I've put these two spikes on an area that's kind of angled inwards, I've now got two spikes that are pointing towards each other. I don't think this bottom one here is an issue, but this one I want to adjust. So I'm just going to isolate that, get the mask onto the middle of it. I'm just going to rotate it up just to straighten it out. Okay, Chris, is that spiky enough for you? We're going to come to the back part. We're going to add more spikes here. So let's go on. 1, 2, 3, 4. Put a spike in there. Another one there. So you see the quantity is coming down, but it still looks very spiky. Another one there. Now one of the things you can do with this, I haven't been doing it, but it's an option. When you're creating spikes like this, if you want them to all be the same size, which actually I'm not fussed about, because if you look at the image, the spikes are various sizes. If you want them to be consistent, what you can do is you can use the brush size tool and then hold control when you draw it out. So if I hold control, that's the size of spike it's making, and if I do start a spike and then hold control, every other spike I make will be exactly the same size. Come on, let's do that actually. You've got to rotate those last ones up again. And we're going to drop one last spike here. Okay, right. I'm happy with that. It's still going to be hard going printing. He's going to have an absolute ton of little lightweight supports around his face. But what we'll try and do is we'll try and make sure that when the supports go on, they contact the tip of the spikes where it's needed. And we'll make sure that they break away from the model. The supports break away clean. So we'll probably have a set of supports going this way off to the right, and then a set of supports going off to the left, so we can capture them on each side, and they'll be like a big cluster. So you probably won't see his head when he comes off the build plate, but when the supports break off, we should have a nice fully formed head inside. Okay, next thing to do is the crest. So again, I'm just going to mask off the area inside. I'm just going to do an extraction. Accept that. And then I just want the top surface of this. I'm just going to mask off everything else. I'm just going to drag. Oh, what's going on there? There we go. And then backwards and forwards. Okay, so it's quite a large crest. I think that's fairly okay. Come on, you turd of a thing. Okay, so we symmetry's on, yeah. Let's bring the back bit down, I think. Let's reprofile. Right, Dynamesh with polish on, about 1000 resolution on this model because the base mesh is quite small. Smaller the base mesh. Can we have a tail going down his back? Yeah, of course, mate. I'll pop that in. Let's get snake hook for that. Let's bring that into him. Run inflate over the top of that just to kind of give that a bit of body. Okay, here's a little tip from me to you. So for doing the strands of hair on the horse hair crest, I'm going to go and change my draw type. So I'm going to put the intensity up quite high. So what I want to be able to do is on the sides, I want to be able to kind of carve in and do like strokes like this, right? So we're going to do that now. First off is the up and down strokes. So you want to come from both ends. I'm not looking to carve every single strand of hair. I just want to give the implication of strands. I'm going to carve in first, and then I'm going to raise a few up. Carving from the top down, I don't know if you can see it, just nicks into the top, so it gives you that little bit of, with a ball and spike on the tip. Dude, you love your spiky balls, don't you, on these things? You're going to kill me with these one day. Okay, so I'm going to put a few nicks into the into here like this, just at the top. Okay, and after carving down, I'm going to use the Alt key. I'm just going to go up the other way, just in between them. Not every single one, but I just want to create a little bit of texture. Because again, I know full well that most people who paint this are going to go and grab a dry brush, and you know, give it a rough rub over to kind of pick up the details, and then run a bit of an ink wash through it. And obviously contrast paints are more of a thing now as well, so people are using them. Okay, you can see it here as well, so let's just... Okay, right, now this top bit, this is the bit that's my trick for you. To do the hairs on the top of this, we're going to go for stroke. We're going to change this to, we've got dots, we've got drag, rectangle, we've got freehand, colour spray, spray and drag dots. We're going to change this to spray mode, and without changing any of my brush settings apart from that, I'm just going to run over the top. Little circular patterns, don't want to be too regular with it. And I'm going to vary the pressure on this as well, because some of the dot sizes are going to change depending on the amount of pressure you apply. And there we go, the top of a horsehair thing. Just dynamesh everything together now. Increase the resolution a touch. And there we go. Horsehair crest is complete. Let's add your spiky ball at the end, Chris. Go back to my brushes, get the spikes. Auto group that so I can isolate the hair. I'm just going to taper in the hair as it comes into the ball at the bottom now. I'll tell you what, Chris, these guys cannot be very comfortable while they're having a scrap, because every time he moves his head he's going to get poked in the back here. Okay, so there we go. Spiky ball on the back of a horsehair ponytail. Just going to rotate them down and lay them across his back. Just give the impression there's more spikes than there actually are. Okay. Groovy. Right. Onto his neck armour now. What was that? What are we on? Hour and 40 minutes. Save. Okay, so we're going to go down and do his neck piece. Chris, I'm going to go on a limb and say that looks to me like a kind of a dragon around his neck. A dragon ornament of some kind. Okay, so I'm going to mask off around his neck here. So there's two parts to this. There's the initial metal former that is sitting on his over his shoulders. There's like a neck guard or some kind of collar of some kind. Tattoo of face mask. Yeah, ping it over to me on Facebook, mate, and then I'll make sure I get it as intended. Okay. Right, I think I'm gonna add an extra little bit of something here, because this thing flapping around on his shoulders is going to be an absolute nuisance for him. So I'm just going to add a couple of like leather straps going under his arms to just secure this piece. Let's extract that. Perfect. I'm going to isolate the internal geometry again. Isolate the internal geometry, turn off my symmetry and shrink. Thank you, Chris. Okay, some Dynamesh to about 600, I think, on this one. I need to smooth out all of the anatomy that's on here. So I'm just going to come in and let me just have a little gander then. Okay, I see what we're dealing with. So Chris has just sent me this image through. So this is the thing that's going to be in the middle. So this is the Darkun, the pure Darkun symbol. I'll have that for reference in a minute. Let's just get this bit smoothed out first so I can start shaping it and forming it. So again, you'll see with me, it's more a case of create the form by any means possible, and then refine it afterwards. So everything goes in super rough and then gets cleaned up. Again, there are more efficient, more effective ways of doing models if you're going to be doing things like animations and stuff, but when you're just making a miniature and the only aim is to have it 3D printed and it's going to be posed manually and whatever else, we don't need to worry about rigging, so we don't need to worry about clean geometry and topology and all that kind of good stuff. So a lot of the tutorials you see about kind of 3D modelling just don't apply. Okay, so Okay, so thank you for sending that through, Chris. Okay, so we've got let's straighten that bit out. Right, so we've got a like a ridge line around the outside. And again, there's various different ways you can do this. I'm going to polish with a 1400 Dynamesh resolution. I'm just going to mask off the outside edges. There we go. Mask them off and invert and inflate, I think, for this one. So re-Dynamesh, and then I'm going to take my H polish. I'm just going to run around the outside, so I'm just going to take the burr off the edge of this. And try and straighten this outside edge. So this is a combination alternating between normal subtraction mode and the addition mode, so pressing the Alt key. Go over the top just to smooth that out. Oops. And the reason I'm taking this little ridge out here, I don't want to have to add extra supports to it. So having the overhangs is going to mean there's something there that's going to potentially need a support added. So if I can remove that now, remove the need for the support, then we're better off for it later on. Because there's going to be enough supports on this guy with all these spikes. Okay, so again my little trick with the using the Alt key on the H polish to get around the curve. Just got to do the internal ring now. So I'm going to go through with the normal H polish, and you'll see how it kind of leaves angles and stuff in there. Or it potentially can at least. The thing with H polish is you're going to get a much smoother, better finish if you use a larger brush size. But then using the larger brush size means that you do get more well, less fine control over where you apply it to. But you will get a better result. I'm going to go and use the nudge tool now, my move tool, just to nudge some of these internal bits out, just to smooth out the, or make it an even depth all the way through, because it's a little bit off at the moment, as you can see. Okay, right, re-Dynamesh that, good. Okay, so let's take my spiky ball, isolate it from the hair, just bring that up to the surface, and then invert my mask, move tool. I was going to do the same here. Okay, right, so going to put some spikes onto the collar. So back to my spikes tool. So there's nothing down in this area, but then we're going to have a couple of spikes up here. You know when you're playing like JRPGs and you get the spiky armour that damages the enemies when they attack you? That's what I feel like this guy should be doing. I think he definitely needs to be kind of like damaging opponents as they hit him. Give him a cuddle, that'll do him. Oh, he does. There you go. Hit him at your own peril, people. Yeah, you don't want this guy to be headbutting you. Right, I've just saved that image down, so let's get this image up. So the light's dazzling me a bit. Okay, so I'm going to take the centerpiece here. We'll do a big mask off again. Extract that. Okay. Isolate the interior, drag it back. I'm just going to dynamesh and polish with a lowish resolution just to smooth it all out. Okay, I'm going to use a trim dynamic on this one just to clean up the edges a little bit because it's all a little bit rough now. Oops. H polish now, and just bulking up at the sides. I want to take this texture off the top, the ridges and the bevels, they're going. Okay, so right, now this is where, again, there's some stylisation required because there's going to be a lot of detail on this guy in the illustration that is not going to carry through to the final model. So the important things I think here are, we have obviously a big spike here. Yeah, just need it's there's a lot of detail in a small area. So if you think about this guy, I mean, I would say this guy's maybe going to be 40mm tall in total, say. So this whole chest piece with all this mega detailing, it's only actually going to be a couple of millimeters in height. So we've got to kind of like think what you can physically see there, because it's going to get too muddy otherwise. So when people are trying to paint it, it's just going to kind of get lost. So it needs a little bit. You need to be able to tell what it is. It's obviously some kind of like stylized dragon head, but it needs to be simplified enough that it's recognisable when it's painted, without being, you know, a perfect copy. So we'll have that there. And then there'll be another ridge there, and that'll take some spikes out to the side. And then we'll go for second little and then the eye here. And we have this extra like spike bit comes in there like that. The bottom I'm going to drag down, so I'm going to just stretch that piece, making sure we bring the back down as well. I'll take my polish off now, bump my Dynamesh up and re-Dynamesh. So there we go there. This is going to come up into spikes here. I know you might even be finished in the next hour at this rate. Well, finished but not posed, I think. So the bottom bit we're going to go for. Oops, forgot to put my freehand back on. Okay, so I'm going to use dynamic tessellation for this bit, just to make sure. So I'm just outlining these ridges. And then and then this one's going to be a nice sharp crest as well. Use a little snake hook on here. Chris, I'm flying by the seat of my pants, mate. I'm just making it up as I go along. Just suck it and see, try and see what works, and hope for the best. That's all I can say on this one. There's no magic formula. So we've got a few nostrils. A few nostrils? 2 nostrils. Okay. And what are we looking at? Okay, so let's drop a big spike in here. Just do a bit of smoothing on that spike. Bit of polishing. I'm just going to run the H polish through the inside here just to take out any kind of irregularness in that horn shape as it goes back into the chest. And I do want it to go all the way back in as well. I don't want it to kind of, like this is being fully extruded from the chest is the way it's going to look. And that's because it's a miniature I'm making. Okay, so fully extruded in, there's no gaps behind it, and that little gap in the top there, that's going right now. Let's dynamesh that again, there we go. Okay, so that's closed. And then we've got a horn at the top, which it's going to stab him in the neck, isn't it? But I may just shrink the whole thing down and move it down his body a bit, to be fair. In fact, let's do that now. There we go. It's down enough that I should be able to get the extra spike up there. So let's put this in. So this piece here I think was where the spike was coming from. Is that right? Yes, the spike's going to come from out here. And again, I just need to drag this down underneath so that there is penetration into the body, so we don't have these underhangs, undercuts. And then this little chunk here is coming out, so I'll just remove that piece. And I only need to remove enough that we're not going to see it through the rest of the model. So, okay, I think I can take to my Dynamesh now. I'm just going to H polish the edges again, just to crispy them all up. Right then. Right, so we've got the dragon crest here. Let's get a crest on there, a ridge. And this bit round here, then we've got to put a few more spikes in. Yeah, what I'll do, I'll save this item down, Chris, so we've got it to draw down on again in the future. And we've got the asset there then to use whenever we need it for anything. Make them more in towards the same shape profile. Okay, I'm just going to mask this little bit off here, which is the bottom of the spikes. Right, now this does not appear to be masking across the board, so I just need to do a mirror and weld operation, which I think comes from that side over. There we go. That's mirroring and welding just to recreate the symmetry. Going to put an inflate under there just in case that bit comes back to bite me later. And in there. And Dynamish again. Okay, when did I turn symmetry off? Because I've just done it again. Okay, so symmetry's back on now. And then I need to just add this bit in, isn't it? Okay. What do you think, Chris? Happy with that? Smoothing it. Okay, so there's the big detail piece on his chest. I'm just going to rotate that a touch. Perfect. Save. Save. Right, extract. I'm going to export that as well as sculpt library. Okay, that's there for future reference then. So the other thing I wanted to do then was I'm going to add a couple of straps. I'm going to do that by adding cylinders. So I'm not going to do it by making curves and all that kind of stuff, which is the usual way it's done. And again, this all comes down to wanting to make it a solid mass, so there's no gap between the body and the strap. So I'm going to just rotate that to a bit of an angle. I want it to touch into there and come up to there. So I'm going to use the move tool now. Wide. I was going to touch onto the front using the Alt key, and that's going to nudge it back into the body. I just want it to go just behind the armour. Just a touch. So the largest brush size you can get away with to start with, so you don't get too much undulation in the thing. Thanks, Kazzy. Oops. And then once we've done the largest transformations with the big move tool, I'm just going to come down and shrink it down. I'm just going to pull the top points in. Okay. And then I've stuffed up the profile for the front, so I'm just going to adjust this as well. And then a little bit of H polish over the top just to level it back out again, without the let's call it back on. Okay, minor bit of clipping going on there, that's not too bad. Right, I'm going to just mask that chunk. Make sure that is unmasked. Group my masked. Isolate that bit, delete it, and then close holes. And I'm going to do a couple of rounds of division to smooth out the strap. Oh, it all comes down to the resin, really. To be honest, Kazzy, it's so I know those spikes are going to be touch and go on the helmet, but they will be there for the most part. So if you're using like a Sonic Mini 4K, I'm confident those spikes will come out. But they're going to be on the small side. The ones on the shoulders are not a problem. But anything that's got any kind of like length to it, you need to make sure it's got a minimum diameter of about 1 millimeter. The thing to always remember is when you put the supports on, you think about the size of the tip of the supports that you're using. So anything that's below, I don't know, say about probably about 0.1 of a millimeter is going to be too thin, especially to be like pre-supported, like freestanding kind of thing. As in terms of like a surface, superficial surface detail, it's fine, but anything that's going to be kind of like freestanding is going to be an issue. The larger spikes on his shoulders are probably going to be about, I don't know, about 1/4 of a millimeter across at the bottom, so that they'll have enough substance at the base that they'll stay on. So the small ones on his helmet, because they're small, but they're, what's the word? They're not long. They're like kind of quite shallow details. They should be okay with just a tip support. So if I get a light support with like a 0.19 tip to the support to the tips of the spikes, it may break off the tips of the spikes, but even when it's printed, you'll still get the idea. And Chris being Chris, I'm pretty sure this guy's probably going to end up as a 120mm tall kind of figurine as a display piece at some point. So if that is the case, then they'd definitely print fine in a larger scale. But yeah, you just don't want to go too small. I mean, the ones on his actual mask on the image, they're more like spines than spikes. But yeah, if you're doing like spear shafts and you're doing kind of weapons and things like that, like 1mm is pretty much your minimum thickness. Ideally, you want to go to about 1.2mm on like a spear shaft, or like for the hammer handle on this guy, for example. We want to be at least 1.2mm thick to make sure that there's some robustness in it, so it's not just going to snap off when people are playing with it. Because you've got to remember, again, when you're making miniatures, you're dealing with the hobby end of the thing as well as the actual sculpt. So it's not enough to just do the sculpt and leave it there and forget about it. You've got to kind of take it to the next level, where you're kind of thinking about how it's going to be used. And ultimately, they're going to be used by people playing games, which means regular repeated handling, and obviously painting them, which means that they've got to be able to get a paintbrush into the detail areas. If you don't consider things like good man, if you don't, I'm assuming you're a man. It's one of them things, isn't it? But yeah, it's you've got to take these things into consideration, because it affects how the model can be supported and printed. And then obviously, if you spend all this time sculpting all this detail and it can't actually physically be painted, it's just pointless. Yeah, you might get a nice print off though if you've got like an 8K printer or one of the DLP ones. But oh, Karen, how are you doing, Karen? So yeah, so it's all about oh, I'm glad. Yeah, it's all down to what it's not just about what the printers can handle, it's about the end user and being able to paint the models and everything else. And there's a lot of sculptors out there, I've said plenty of times now, they're not hobbyists, so they don't appreciate the full process that's involved. And my usual kind of like likening would be like if you were to go to a restaurant and order a meal from a chef, and that chef doesn't eat. You know, I know it's never really going to happen, but if that situation was to ever occur, you know, you've got a chef who could not eat food. You know, they can't taste it, they don't appreciate the end product, so they can't have an appreciation of the end product. So okay, mirror and weld. Oh no, I've got to delete the subdivision levels first. No. Oh yeah, sorry. Losing the plot out. Polish that. Take the subdivisions out, mirror and weld. And then I'm just going to come to the next. I'm going to use the clay brush. I'm just going to put a little dimple divot all the way around the belt, and that way when you paint this, the inks will flow into the middle of the belt and leave a natural highlight around the edge. And if you dry brush it, you'll be able to pick up the edge highlights easily, and it'll just give you a nice look to the belt. So yeah, again, it's not necessarily about how true to life you can make things. It's got to be about representing it properly in 32mm scale on a tabletop. There you go. Okay, so upper body is done. I need a couple of buckles for that, so let's just chuck a buckle on there. I normally cheat this bit and I'll use a ready-made buckle, but I'll do it properly as people are watching. Right, not that one. I'll mask it all off first, I think. Get symmetry on. Okay, so there we got a buckle and this one. Oops. Okay, and oops. Let's see if we can remember which way around this goes now. So just check my iron belt. I'm wearing it at the moment. So yeah, the little pin on the belt goes at the opposite end to the what do we call it, like the tail of the belt, if you like. This one's so common to see. People get this wrong all the time, whether they're doing miniatures or artwork. It's so common to see the whole belt thing running off in the wrong way. That's why I wear a belt most days. It's not because I need to hold my trousers up, it's because I need a reference point every so often. Okay, so I'm just going to mask off that into a little point, and I'm just going to pull with the move tool just to bring it up a touch, and I'm just going to yank the end out there. Okay, so this is okay, zoom back in, and then I'm just going to take the brush tool here. Mirror and mod the buckle. There we go. Now his arm is going nowhere. Okay, belt wise, what's this guy got going on? Right, so the belt is pretty much where the reference material for this guy ends. So I'm on my own now. Right, let's just do a little. Got a big belt on him. With what in the middle, Chris? Oh, disc in the middle. I was sitting there thinking, is he really asking for that? A poor workman, mate. What do you say? Right, let's mask this off. I think I'll get banned off Twitch if I started sculpting that, Chris. Circular disc I can do. Right, I'm going to accept that. Delete the interior geometry again. Delete hidden closed holes. Let's kind of polish. It's just practice, guys. Practice, practice, practice. Lots of reference material, lots of study. I've got no formal artistic training. I've taught myself everything basically. So everything I've done in the hobby is always everything I've done has come from the hobby. So like I say, I started painting models when I was like 5. From the age of about 11, 12, I was converting models. You know, cutting them up, changing them, switching parts out, sculpting new bits on. And then I'll say about 20 years ago I started like sculpting models. And there's a point when you're doing artwork, there's a point when you kind of feel like you're not very good. And you're looking at your work and everybody else is telling you it's amazing and whatever else, but you're looking at it kind of going, no, this is rubbish, this is crap. And it's kind of, it doesn't feel it at the time, but it's a good place to be, because it kind of means that you've got an eye for detail, and you understand where you're trying to get to, what the end goal is, and you realise that you're not there yet, and that's where you kind of get this additional drive to kind of like push on to improve. So by going through the motions of feeling like you're rubbish and that you're failing and whatever else, it kind of can push you then to, as long as you embrace it, it can push you on to kind of like get better and improve. And one of the key things you need to make sure you do is don't ever sit there with just doing stuff out of your brain until you've perfected it with reference material first. Like I did the entire anatomy on this guy. Just everything I've done here was straight out of my head with no anatomical reference, because I've done it 1,000 times. It's like muscle memory. I just know what goes, not muscle memory as in I know what the muscle, I remember what the muscles are. It's like, you know, I've sculpted it so many times, it's like second nature to just rough out anatomy now. But if somebody turned around to me and said make a helicopter, I don't know what a helicopter looks like. I do, in a kind of a budget helicopter kind of like point of view, but I would be doing it using lots of photographic reference and things like that to try and make sure I got it correct. And by the time I've sculpted 20 or 30 helicopters, I could probably do one from memory or kind of wing it then. Yeah, do you know, I used to really love doing the hand sculpting when I was doing more hobby and stuff, because it was it's a very tactile thing. I used to just sit there on a sofa with like my toolbox in my lap, and I'd like a little tray in the top of it with all my bits in, and I'd just sculpt bits and plonk them down while I was watching telly with my wife. And then moving on to digital just made everything so much easier now, because I still use the same techniques, as strange as it sounds. I still use the same techniques to sculpt digitally as I used to do when I was sculpting in putty. So I moved to Zbrush over other software because it actually uses, they used to refer to it, I don't know if they still do, it used to be referred to as like digital clay, and it does have the same kind of feel. You don't have you obviously can't feel the the pressure in your hand as the force you're applying and all that kind of stuff. But it was very much by using the digital stylus, you get the pressure sensitivity. You can kind of manipulate it that much easier, and it does feel as close as you can possibly get, I think, to sculpting in clay, with the added benefit of, as you've seen me doing all the way through this, having symmetry applied, so only having to sculpt one half of the model. Also being able to like copy and paste, not having to wait for your putty to cure and set up before you carry on sculpting. You can just crack on. So I was limited with the green stuff. I was limited to kind of like 15 minute stints, because I could sculpt 15 minutes at a time, get some details in, and then once I got it right, I would have to stop, use a little bit of discipline, put that model to the side, not touch it again for the next hour, wait for it to cure up so I'm not going to destroy anything I've just done, and then come back to it and work on it again. And sometimes you've got these iterative processes that you were doing where you'd have to build up stuff first, and then you'd have to like sand it back and scrape it and cut it and carve it. And if you go too far, you have to build it back up again and repeat the process. And it was a pain trying to do that kind of stuff. So, as much as I enjoyed the process of it, I actually do much prefer doing digital. And then obviously being able to 3D print it, and you print a model off and pull it off the build plate, and you've got something that you've made. Like, I make this now, do a support on it, and then 4 hours later I've got a model that's perfect for tabletop gaming. So it's definitely I definitely do prefer digital. The only thing is if I was wargaming and I was buying armies off the shelves, there would be an element of that where you definitely need to do a little bit of green stuff work to customise the models, because it's not practical to then go off and start sculpting and trying to, you don't know the fit and stuff like that and dimensions. So in those kind of cases, yeah, sculpting with green stuff would still trump it, I think. But as you may guess, I don't get an awful lot of time to do to play things like Warhammer and things like that anymore. So it's there's a little bit of time creeping in, because my oldest Jacob, he's getting into his models and stuff. He likes playing things like Zombicide with me. So there's going to be a lot of gaming in the future with him, I think. So I'm going to have to make time for it then. But it's it's time with the little one, isn't it? So he's not going to want to do that. It's just a good excuse, really, isn't it? Okay, I'm just extracting the braces off here now. Oh, he loves it. He sculpted his own model as well. I don't know if you've ever seen it, Kaz, but let me just get the picture up on it. He made this entirely himself. So I showed him what to do. I showed him the ropes, and then he figured out. He's 7 now, but he was 6 when he did it. But I showed him how to sculpt. He was watching me because it was during lockdown when he was on the desk just behind me here doing all his home learning. So between home learning and everything else, he had an hour here and there where he'd finished lessons and was waiting for the next one, and he wanted to sit and do some sculpting. So let me just find it. I basically took here it is. That was what he made, completely on his own. I gave him my Wacom tablet, my portable one, sat him down behind me over there, and he made them all up. I've got let me just move the cameras a bit so I can, all the stuff off my desktop, sorry, so I can show you properly. But he did the paint job on it as well. So I've got this crazy little dude here, which is his painted version. So when we did ChillCon, I had him sitting up on top of the display cabinet as a little mascot. And so many people wanted to buy one, and I hadn't taken any stock. So I said to him, next time I've got to take his little money box. So there's like a little Jacob's Hobby Fund kind of thing. Put his little money box on the top, and if people want to buy a beholder, they can, put a few quid in his money box and have one. So we're going to take a little supply of them to the next show. He'll make more money than I do on it, I'm certain. Let's get rid of that for now. But yeah, basically, when we did it for sale, when he made it, I told him I'd put it on my web store to sell. So we put it up, did a bit of promotion for him, and we had I think there's about 180 quid of sales come through, and I'd told him I basically said he could keep all the profit from it. So obviously we lost a bit to fees and whatever else from the various different platforms, but then I had to draw the money down for him and pop it into his bank account for him. So he had some of the money as what do you call it, credit on his Nintendo account, so he could get some games for the Switch that he wanted. And then obviously he got a taste for it. Then he was like, "This is brilliant. This is brilliant. I want to make another one." So he's chomping at the bit, trying to figure out what he's going to sculpt next. Goblins, I think, is what he's talking about. So we may have some we may have some Jacob Kelly goblins coming in the near future. So I'll look forward to promoting them and showing them off as well. Okay, so how to do the laces. No, I know what I'll do. I'm gonna widen that. I'm gonna put straps in there for buckles instead. Give me 2 seconds. I've got to turn my radiator off. It's gone boiling hot in here now. Where's that gone? That's a little bit too thick, too thin, sorry. So I'm just going to rotate that. I'm going to try and line it up to his wrist. About right. And there we go. One strap. Just use the move tool to move the next one. Okay. So we're nearing the end of today's stream, so we've got about another 10 minutes or so. So I'll probably get these braces finished for that, and then next stream we'll get his legs done. Chris, if you want to, I can have a look and see if we can get a camera on screen, like a partner cam, or collab cam I think they call it in the app. So if you want to come on and talk Cursed Empire while I'm sculpting away, be happy to have you on. Same time next week. Kaz, you're welcome to come and join him if you like. So tomorrow's stream, I'm going to be doing the Crystal Collapse model again. So last week we started. I started with Lucifer, the king for the Imperial faction, the bad guys for the game. So tomorrow I'm going to be carrying on with that. So this one's more of an anime style than what I'm doing at the moment. It's a little bit of an interesting task for me to do something that's not quite my usual style. So yeah, if you're about and you want to come and sign in and check that one out, I'm going to see if I can get Max on for that, I think, so we can have a little bit of a talk about the game. And I did mention to you before, Chris, obviously Max Max is the chap we were having a discussion about, who we're looking for a French translator, a French translation of the rulebook for Crystal Collapse, and all the stories and stuff. So we need it translated into French, but we're going to be looking at some French distribution as well, because by all accounts, France has the biggest JRPG following outside of Japan, which is something I wasn't even aware of. So the French are going to be a target market for the Crystal Collapse game. So we're going to be doing some promotion and all that kind of stuff. So I had no idea, mate. I genuinely didn't. Although I should have thought about it really, because I know a lot of these like cartoon series come over, and they seem to be, they've been adapted from French language into English, and they're like anime type ones from going back now. I can't think what they were. Certainly remember a lot of like French cartoons coming over there. Definitely when I was like a kid. What am I looking for? Mirror and weld. Okay, so we've now got the straps and buckles on both sides. I'm going to take these little buckles, I'm going to duplicate them, move them, oh no, symmetry on, I'm going to rotate them around. We're just going to position them here. I'm just going to nudge the arm back here rather than try and get the straps back. Okay. And use that. Okay, and here I'm just going to bring this down so it covers the wrist properly. And then we're on to spikes again. Let's drop a few spikes in. Oh, they're too big, aren't they? Let's take the Z intensity down, see if that shrinks it down. I can't know if it does. Yeah, it does. There we go. So I've reduced the Z intensity down, and now we've got some shorter spikes with the fat bottoms on them, so they connect well and they print. Fat bottom spikes. Pretty sure there's a song in there somewhere. If my mum was here, she would be singing it right now. But she's nuts like that. So I just need to do something about this overhang here. Oops, let's just auto groups this first, hide that, and split that away, and these spikes I just want to divide them. It just smooths them out a touch, and then group Dynamesh. Merge that back down. Okay, braces are done. How can you activate a camera, Chris? I think I looked into it the other week. I'm going to try and do it with Max tomorrow, I think, so we can test that out. I'll basically have to send you a link, and it'll be like a web browser login for you. So as long as you've got a webcam on your laptop, you'll be able to connect with that, and I'll just have to position you in the corner of the screen or something like that, and then we should be good to go. So I'll try it. I'll try it tomorrow. If I'm successful with Max tomorrow, we'll do the same with you next week. So it'll probably be Monday or Tuesday next week. I'll schedule to do the follow up on this sculpt. Right, question for you, mate. Before we knock this one off, the belt I've just done for him is coming up and joining into this breastplate. Do you want that to happen or not? Or do you want me to shrink this down a touch? And in fact, I can probably shrink this a little bit. That should be okay, actually. There we go. So put that in there. Stretch the back. There we go. Yeah, get some of that Greek thing going on. We'll have the like the Greek style leather skirt going on. Yeah, like the Imperials. He's a bit too symmetrical for my liking, so I may break symmetry when I do his legs, and give him something a bit off, like an off-centered, an asymmetrical skirt or something like that. No cloth. What? Oh, like the just the leather straps down one side, you mean? Yeah. I'm trying to see if I need to do anything else with him before I log off and call it a day. Okay, guys, so we're going to stop here, I think, for now. So again, I can't do a raid today because my Twitch won't let me chat because it's making me log in again for some reason, and I don't know my password. So I need to try and reset my password or reobtain my password or whatever else. But yeah, what I will do, I'll put an invitation up again for next week's stream. We'll get that one sent out and we'll resume this. We'll get the legs finished and move on to posing next time round. So it shouldn't take too long to get the legs done. A lot of time I spent up on here doing getting the helmet right and getting the chest piece. So yeah, let's say next week we'll have the stream again, and as Chris has volunteered, we're going to have Chris on board on the stream, so he's going to kind of come and talk through what he's working on, tell us about the Darkun faction and a little bit more about them. And while he's doing that, I'll crack on with the sculpt. And yeah, so I want to say thank you to everybody for joining in and tuning in again today. I say sorry I can't raid you out, but I recommend you go and hit up Mike Moans after this. Go and have a little look at his Twitch broadcast because they're always quite entertaining. And I'm going to say goodbye now and go and get myself another drink and something to eat because I'm starving. Okay. Right, cheers guys. Thanks again, and we'll see you tomorrow hopefully.